There you go.
Hey, all right, you want to talk McIntosh at 62 points or Dan Hollins at 87 points?
Welcome to the Rugby Rant podcast show, your premier North American rugby podcast. Growing rugby, one fan at a time.
And welcome, rugby fans. It's that time again here on the Rugby Rant podcast show, episode 141. To join myself, Ty the Sappho Braga, Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt, and returning on another occasion, Mike the Grand Poobah Perazzini. Mike, again, I don't even think I have to say thanks for coming here. I just feel like locked up for your shift as per usual.
We're gonna run out of merch to send Mikey pretty soon. We're gonna have to give him some Target or
I said it before though,
or something like
Rob.
that.
As long as he stays at 39 and a half hours, we're good. So it's important to be able to take the opportunity to remind folks what we do here on the Rugby Rant is, of course, talk about everything rugby related, but more specifically focusing on rugby in North America, as we hope to be able to help grow rugby one fan at a time. And that's why here we gather as a couple of fans of rugby to be able to share what we know about the game. And as we continue forward, we're also going to be diving into an interesting debate, which will have us pegged against one another to be able to put forth who we think are some of the great heroes of the 2023 season, including our picks in who might be the rookie of the year, the MVP, best forward, best back, standout player, and everything else in between. So stick around, because first, we're going to learn more about the rugby news from across the realms and around the pitch.
When we pick up the ball, we also pick up a legacy. A legacy that stretches beyond your current team. A legacy built on the backs of those who came before you with hard work. And for those who will come after you, we promise it won't be easy. But we'll be there, supporting you on and off the field.
So, gentlemen, you know how it goes, but a reminder for those fans at home, how it works is we're going to go around the table a couple of times here to be able to share what we think fans should learn about, what is noteworthy, what is newsworthy when it comes to rugby in North America. And we're going to start this off with Rob Hammerschmidt.
Thank you, Ty. And again, welcome back, Mikey. It's always good and a pleasure to have you jump aboard. I'm going to start off my Around the Pitch with a big congratulations and shout out to the New England Free Jacks for a number of reasons. Obviously, they are the number one seed in the East. They've had a heck of a regular season. We'll talk maybe more a little bit about them during the rant. But Veterans Memorial Stadium in Quincy, Massachusetts was sold out for Week 18. CEO Alex Magleby reported that 4,766 seats were sold. A lot of folks in attendance there. Obviously, this is a record in the 47-24 hiding of the Houston SaberCats. I was looking forward to that match simply because it pits one of the East playoff teams with the West playoff teams. And, people have been talking about the East is a little, it's not as strong as a conference, but I think when you look at them head to head, that's a better way of comparing them. Nevertheless, the attendance was a franchise or is a franchise record. Awesome to see. I know we're always concerned about attendance because, of course, it's one of the vibrant ways to keep the league afloat. So it's good to see, and congratulations to the Free Jacks, and shout out to Phil Harris. I guess I'll have to say it. Huzzah.
I love it. Of course, Phil Harris, a friend to rugby everywhere, but in particular the show as well, having joined us on several occasions. And one thing I wanted to be able to revisit there, as you said, it's a great success story. To be able to see attendances like this. Anybody, as a fan of rugby in the US wants to see those numbers continue upward, and especially when you get down into these difficult moments where it's knockout rugby, even more important to have all those seats filled. So great job to the Free Jacks fans for coming out in their droves to show support to their team and players.
Yeah, and by the way, before we turn it over to Mike, I got to say, folks, if you're watching, if you can at all, even if you're not a fan of the two teams that make it in the final, come out, show up.
Right.
We're going to be doing some things. I'm talking to Matt Cartwright, of course, Seattle fan. He's coming out regardless of whether Seattle's there or not. And we're going to be going out and reaching and talking to fans. Ty, hopefully, is going to be joining me here in Chicago. And we're going to be talking to fans, really trying to engage the fans of rugby that have come to show or that will be coming to Chicago to enjoy the final. So I just want to throw a shout out there.
Exactly that, right? You don't have to have your team in there to be able to show support for American rugby as a whole, or at least in this case, North American rugby, I should extend it to. Yep. Mikey, I throw it over to you, my friend.
I was going to say news out of the women's rugby game this week. Canada Rugby, USA Rugby, and Australia Rugby all set their larger rosters for the World Rugby Pacific 4 series. And so that, for those that don't know, it's Canada, USA, Australia, and New Zealand all playing against one another. I believe the first leg has already happened, and so they're going into legs 2, 3, and 4. Good to see that they're setting their larger rosters, and it's good, to see the women's games growing. Hopefully, we get some nice competition out of, the remaining games.
Yeah, and I'm going to stay on that topic for a moment about women's rugby. And back in my neck of the woods, Des Moines, Iowa, we have the national championships, for the All-Star Championships, I should say. And that's going to be taking place for the women's game, under 23s. I bring this up for two reasons. One, it's going to be great to be able to give an opportunity to these young ladies to be able to showcase what they've got, to be able to put their hands up and say that they're willing to be able to support this nation at the highest level, be a part of that next generation, to be able to take it on to senior honors. And I think there's about 6 teams being represented geographically. They come across from all over the country. But not surprisingly, you see a large contingent from the Midwest area, which is heavily represented, and representing a team will also be a fan of our show. A great friend is TJ Olson from the Bonus Point podcast. I'll be hanging out with him this weekend, so it'll be a great opportunity to see some wonderful rugby. June 23rd to June 25th, and that's at the Des Moines Rugby Club, who recently, by the way, was home to John Cullen as well, who, leaving there, made his way to the Chicago Hounds. So, certainly rugby in the Midwest is alive and well. We once said it was a bit of a desert, but it's great to be able to see it continuing its growth. Rob Hammerschmidt, back to you.
Thanks, and enjoy, TJ. You're in a metropolitan area to go out. It should be comparative to Chicago. At any rate, and Ty, say
we got bright city lights too.
Yeah, amongst all the cornfields. But Ty,
when you come to Iowa, the one person you want to be able to carry you around and be your tour guide is a guy not from Iowa.
Right. Well, Preston should be there too. Get a chance to say hi to my progeny. He's there with the St. Louis Bombers for the Sevens tournament coming this weekend. So,
fantastic!
It's a qualifier. So I want to get into my next around the pitch piece. It's kind of to make light of something, but I have to wonder if the MLR paid their bills this weekend. It was like a confluence of factors, and very little of it had to do with the MLR. So but in case somebody missed it, 3 games, very interesting things happened with the Power. About 65 minutes into the NOLA match versus Toronto in York Lions Stadium, lights went out. Fortunately, it was, there was still enough daylight to play, but it was just kind of funny, stalled the game for a couple minutes. Then the time, the banners, the announcer, the ref audio, and then all the audio in the San Diego-Seattle match died on the TV broadcast. Thanks, Liz Hallcraft, for reminding me about that. And then the Free Jacks Houston match was supposed to be on FS1. That's where it was announced. It was certainly on the ticker there for people to record. And alas, if they recorded it, it was the USFL instead, like the New Orleans Breakers against somebody else. Who cares? Nevertheless, unless they had their recording set up to also do FS2, they had to wait 24 hours. So a little bit of a bummer in week 18, but you know what? The playoffs are arriving, and those should tick off like an absolute machine. So looking forward to first weekend of playoffs.
I like it. Mikey, over to you again.
Back up north again. Up here in Albany, we're so close. Basically Canada. The U18 Canadian men's side is going to Corridon Summer Tour in Amsterdam. It's hosted by Rugby Netherlands, I believe it's 5 separate teams. They're all playing against one another. Great tour, a great chance for, the U18 Canadian side to really, get their stuff and, prove their mettle. And so they believe they've set their initial roster, and looking forward to, they're going, believe the first or second weekend in July. So it'll be good to see, how they do. And, hopefully these are some of the future stars that we'll be seeing in years to come for Rugby Canada.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you see, and I might be wrong, but I think previously I saw them sending a U20 side there as well. But it would be an interesting move to be able to focus on a U18. Like if you've got limited funding and you had to be able to give more to one over another, I kind of see the logic in giving it to a younger player who has more opportunity to be able to grow and a longer period to be able to become that player, right? So it'll be interesting to be able to see what Canada has in store, but it's nice to be able to see them sending players overseas to get that experience. As we all know, it's absolutely vital to any player development to be able to increase the level of competition, and that's exactly what they will get there. So let me take the opportunity to dive into my last and final piece as we turn our attention back to Major League Rugby. And on this occasion, another measurement of success. We spoke about fan engagement. Now we talk about money. Where does that often come from? Investors. And Old Glory DC can count themselves fortunate enough to be able to have some key people join their investor circle, most notably minority owner of the Washington Nationals, Peter Baker, in addition to some award winners, Verdine, I think was the last name. But really what's important is that you're seeing investment in rugby from people who already invest in sports locally. You're not talking about outside investors. One of the great challenges as we continue to be able to find investors in the U.S. for the U.S. game is to be able to look locally, right? To be able to have Americans invest in it again. So it's good to be able to see that. Kudos to Old Glory DC. They certainly have picked their timing well as they are in the postseason. And what a wonderful time to be able to announce that on top of their great form right now. And that is it from us here on Around the Pitch. What we're going to do in a moment is we're going to be back after a few words from one of our partners who helps us to do what we do week after week, and we thank them again and again. But when we come back, we're going to dive into the Rugby Rant portion, the debate, and talking about who are the best players of the MLR 2023 regular season. We'll be back.
Tighthead Brewing Company is not just Chicago's premier location to watch rugby and enjoy quality ales and lagers. It is also a great place to enjoy local acts performing live music every Thursday and Saturday nights. Additionally, their Wednesday night trivia nights are something not to be missed. Tighthead is located in Mundelein, Illinois, and easily accessible for many Chicagoans, as it is just steps away from the metro. Owner Bruce Durr and the Tighthead staff are dedicated to ensure your microbrew experience is as tight as their beers. Bruce's love for rugby extends beyond the origin of his brewery's name. Tighthead is committed to supporting the rugby community. This includes his support for Lake County RFC and our own Rugby Rant podcast show. Tighthead's tap room is like the familiar rugby clubhouse in which friends and teammates can meet, socialize, and enjoy the wide variety of brews on tap. Regardless of whether your palate enjoys a good IPA or a dark barrel-aged brew, Tighthead can deliver. Hey, Chicago, when you want rugby, Tighthead Brewing Company will satisfy your thirst. Tighthead, it's worth more than a try.
And we're back, rugby fans, episode 141. And as we gather again, we're here to be able to talk about the 2023 regular season top picks. Now, before we dive into it, gentlemen, I want to remind folks that we're going to go around the table to hear your opinions, starting out with Mikey. We're going to move it over to Rob, and I might throw in a few interesting quids from some information I've managed to be able to gather, a few stats to be able to substantiate it or to counter what they may feel. We're going to break it into two sections, the first of which is to be able to decide who they believe is the comeback kid of the MLR 2023 season, somebody who might previously have come off the bench or perhaps have been injured and while, coming back from recovery, managed to make an impact right away. It could be their decision. They can decide who it may be, but that gives you some ideas of where they may get the inspiration from. We're going to move on to the breakout player, somebody who not necessarily is a rookie, but somebody who might be new to the league and make an impact right away. This could be an international. It could be somebody from a crossover athlete. It could be anything they decide. But somebody who has certainly made an impact and who may be new to the league. That doesn't necessarily mean somebody brand new, which is the next one we'll be talking about, is the Rookie of the Year nomination. That's one that's always exciting. I think many people are interested to hear about that. Then in the second half, we're going to be going to the familiar favorites of best forward, best back, and overall MVP, again, for the regular season. That is 18 games. We're not counting any games that were of the postseason. We'll be doing a summary later on, I assume, when it comes to that. So, gentlemen, you know the rules. You know what you need to do. We're going to start you off with the first three choices, with Mike taking the floor here with the comeback, the breakout, and your rookie. What are they?
So, for me, my comeback player is, and I'm going to be a homer for this, Brooklyn Hardiker, I believe, is the comeback, should be the comeback player of the year. A guy that was initially signed by teams in the MLR, I believe, before he, was signed by Rugby New York. He was signed by LA, but didn't get to play a single game for LA because he had back-to-back ACL injuries. I believe he tore his ACL twice, in a row, which, once I've seen many a guy go, one ACL injury, I'm done. But, two, and to come back and, come off the bench and to play and to score tries for Rugby New York, that shows some grit, some determination. So I think without a doubt, it's easy enough for me. Comeback player is Brooklyn Hardiker. As for the breakout player, another homer point pick for me, I'm going to go with Caleb Geiger. I think Caleb has been kind of a guy that's been under the surface, kind of. He is a crossover athlete. Didn't start playing rugby until I think 2 or 3 years ago. Played for the Raptors, then came over, played for Rugby New York. He's a hooker, not the easiest position to learn. And then, this season really saw that he could play, hooker, tight head, and loose head, which to be a professional, rugby player and to play all three is almost unheard of. I believe he was in the first 15 at least twice, I believe, this season. And I know he was also player of the week at one point. So really a breakout star and hopefully a future USA rugby player.
You chose a crossover athlete. Like I was kind of dripping that in the beginning, thinking of him as an example, actually.
Yeah. I think he really, I think I said, I think he really, proved himself. He was always under the surface and was always doing well, but he certainly, proved himself this year. And then as for rookie, I'm going to be honest, I really don't like, I'm a casual MLR supporter. I watch Rugby New York games. If I'm at the bar and I'm drinking, a beer and I see that there's a game that pops up on my, on my phone and says, hey, so on, I'll tell the bar, hey, can you put this game on? And I'll make everybody in the bar watch it. But other than that,
that's
very
more
casual.
Than a casual fan. That's a super
I don't know. I'd say
else tune in.
Why not? But I to be honest, I don't know of a rookie to me that really stood out. I'd say I'll go another homer because I'll just do my homers right now. I'd say Monte Kui. From Rugby New York, he was standing out in a couple games, but there's no one whose name really rung true as a rookie for me this season. And to that, which point becomes, I know that we need to have a rookie of, it's something that professional sports do, but in the MLR, do we need to have one? Since we have so many imports and we are such a new league, is a rookie of the year something that we need to continue.
And this is an interesting point, though, because, before we go on camera, just for those that are tuning in, we often have a pre-production meeting. And I asked Rob the same thing. Hey, Rob, tell me the difference between this one and this one and this one in your opinion, right? And the rookie one is, you're right, you pointed it out. In every major sport, people look at that and they go, okay. And maybe that's because it's more easily identified. It's probably, for me, one of the tougher ones to be able to choose because there's such great talent. The MLR draftee class is getting stronger as every year goes by. It becomes a little bit more difficult. And I'm not going to share who I think probably might be my pick because I want to be able to hear from Rob first. But let's start it off again right from the top with you, Rob.
Thank you. So I'm going to come back. First of all, let me just say I'm not a homer. I don't focus on.
Well, now you have 2 homers in rugby, so it's not fair.
Yeah. Or the gold, yeah. But I tried to spread it around a little bit. Again, thinking about the fact that you have 12 teams engaged in an 18-week season. So I'm going to start first with my comeback player here. If I have a homer, it's probably this one, only because this guy is a friend of the show. Comeback player for me is John Wayne Cullen. Why? Mm-hmm. He was called into service 4 or 5 weeks into the season.
Right.
He had been basically coaching, playing a little bit in Des Moines, Iowa, jumps right in, comes in, again, 5 weeks in. He gets stuck in, and almost immediately he is playing quality minutes, and then shortly thereafter is actually starting at the second row position. He was in 10 appearances, which were all 10 of the games that he was available for. Right. He scored a try, solidified the line out a bit for a team that at the time he joined in was struggling a little bit to find its line, set piece and line out identity. Keep in mind, he's been out of the game for at least 2 seasons. He had played in Utah before. So for a guy to kind of go to normal life and then come back to professionalism is 31. He is hardly a kid, as Ty talked about, but certainly I think deserving of the honor. My breakout player goes to Joel Hodgson. You got to remember that in 2022 season, Utah was 5-11, struggling mightily. And Joel came in this season. They were 10-6, just missed the playoffs. And it was the Hounds that knocked them out. But they doubled their win record. And I can't help but to think that Joel Hodgson and by de facto his number 9 pairing, Connor McLeod, did a hell of a job too. But 111 points in 15 matches. He was 3rd overall in the league. 4 tries, 15 penalties, 21 conversions, 5,806 kicking meters, which was 1st in the league. This guy shows up at the top of the stat sheet, particularly on the flyouts. Scored an incredible try. It was the rugby. There's a group that breaks down play-by-plays. It's not Rugby Bricks. It's the rugby coach or something like that. Yeah. And they diagram this play, and he made it. You're talking about the
contact coach.
Yeah, contact coach. Thank you. Yeah, contact coach broke down a play that he scored on. It was a try that I watched and went, yeah, that was tight.
Yeah.
All right. And then finally, my rookie of the year, and I disagree. I think you got to do a rookie of the year. We're seeing the Prem actually talk about no promotion or relegation, but they're also now talking about draft. James Haskell has been talking about doing the draft in the Prem, and I think it's a recognition of American players for the most part, or guys starting off in college and coming.
And then all you need to do is explain what it is to every Brit, like you had to me.
And that's okay. You're adopting our draft, so they'll figure out eventually. But Sam Gala from the Dallas Jackals, 16 appearances, 17 points, 3 tries. Of course, one of those tries was in between the sticks, so he gets credit for 7 points here. That's how I figured out he came up with 17 points rather than 15. He was number 4 in tackles, guys, with 213 tackles, I think, just prior to the game on week 18. Yeah, keep in mind who who are previous winners, Alex Lopetti and Andrew Guerra, both of whom appeared in the USA jersey on the heels of actually Lopetti appeared before he was in the MLR. But, both these guys were Eagle quality. Right. And what do we see? Sam Gala is actually named in the, the 54-man roster. And I expect to see him be in the 32-man roster come this fall because, we are starving for actual locks in the American Eagles, in the U.S. Eagles.
Rob, I'm going to give you a 3 out of 3 because I actually had, and it's no jokes, I had all those names listed by way of my own choice for John Cullen, as I kind of alluded to beforehand, so no surprise there. Sam Golla, for sure, who, by the way, I think in addition to your amazing stats, great job there again, Rob, always Johnny on the spot with the great, validation through actual facts. But I might be corrected, but I think he's also one of 2 rookies this year that actually started 16 games in the MLR, which the other one is Colin Gross. So significant game time for a rookie. And when we think back of other candidates for this, Mooneyham,
right.
Mason, all great similarities. And the one key factor is they were professional rugby ready out of college, right from the get-go. And that, to me, certainly puts you on the radar as being a rookie. It doesn't matter if it's 5 games, 10 games, maybe you're injured somewhere along the way, but if you're rugby ready at this level, straight out of the gates, you're on that list. Yep. Hodgson, in between, absolutely good picks all around. You substantiated it through great facts and evidence. I want to be able to give a shout out while we're on the stats and stuff to James Dealey. If you're not already a fan of what he does online, you should be. You don't need to be that deep into it to be able to recognize the achievements of these players. And he helps you do that by bringing all that information to you in an easy to understand, concise manner week after week. So shout out to James for also giving me a little bit of helping hand to be able to find some of these stats, and we'll continue to be able to share that in a moment. But gentlemen, let's turn our attention to the next 3 picks: best forward, best back, and then overall MVP. So we're going to hand it back to you, Mike, to be able to jump into these.
So for me, forward, I had to go West Coast. Reichard Hannigan, I think it is my forward of the year is I believe he was number 3 in tries scored. He was producer, so great producer on offense, leader on defense. Captain of the Seawolves. Kind of they made the championship game last year, but it still wasn't the best season. But they really turned things around this season, you could say, and it was on his shoulders. So certainly. Great on him for, leading, the Seawolves back into, the promised land of the playoffs. As for back, Paul Bellicana from New England. I cringe to say that. Just a New England guy.
It's like swallowing a bitter pill, isn't it, Mikey?
Yeah. But, certainly an amazing producer on offense for them, and certainly an amazing weapon for them that has led to their increased success this year. And so, certainly, New England has a lot of weapons, but he stands out as the weapon that they certainly had for them. So a great job on him for doing that. And then my MVP was Joaquin Diaz-Bonilla from Old Glory. When I think of MVP, it's a guy that kind of completes a team and, puts stuff around him. He's that one key piece. It seems like the past couple of years, Old Glory's been missing that one thing, and whether it was, Joaquin or it wasn't, he certainly came in this year, was able to distribute, kept them in close with his kicking. So I think that, for me, may not be the best player, not leading the charts in, points, tries, but, consistent, played well, and allowed for his team to stay in the games and is now in the playoffs.
And that's the great thing about rugby, though, is that you can't necessarily quantify by points alone the contribution of a player in rugby, right? And much like many other physical sports too. But if you often do your job very well, you might not realize how great a job that person's doing. A great example is the underrated nature of the Type 5 and their importance. Now, as years have gone by, we've now become aware of how technical some of these jobs really are. But do they get the glory? Not always, right? But you highlight, these players and these moments in between who are more than just their contribution to the scoreboard. I like that there very, very, very much. And a lot of interesting names there. I'm glad to be able to see you stepped away. You forced yourself to include the Free Jacks there and Old Glory.
It hurt, but it hurt. But to be honest, you've got to give credit where credit's due.
Right.
And all these guys played incredibly well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason they're on your list. And I thank you for that. Rob, what do you have to share?
So it's interesting. Mikey, I got to commend you. Reichert Hadding, I think he missed like 6 or 7 games in spite of that fact. He's third in the list in tries. And I think he would have been on my list had he played a complete season. It was just hard for me to justify having him on there in any way, either as MVP or forward, just because he's out of service, although he's up in the box helping if you watch the games, he's up in the box helping the coaching staff. But what's interesting about my list is, yes, there are guys on my list of these 3 that come from programs or teams of pedigree. Interestingly, San Diego doesn't have anybody on any of my lists.
Neither of your lists so far.
Yeah, any of my lists. And I think it's just because they're such a complete team. Like, there's some guys that just can be moved in and out of their team and they don't miss a beat, which is a credit to the organization. So if, I imagine if they go on and win the Shield, they would be the team of the year, but we'll see what happens.
Rob, before you jump any farther into that, I'll jump in just on San Diego, and I will give a notable player mention.
Yeah.
Augsburger, right? Traditionally known at 9.
Sure.
Here he's moved out onto the wing, and I think he scored like 6 tries this season or something. You know, so there are some standout players, but it's so hard when all of the players are at that level to be able to pick out one. Right. But your best forward, your best back, and your MVP, let's hear it.
So my best forward is Wayne Conradi from New England. 13
for 4 now.
Yeah, there we go. 5 tries, 25 points. Number 5th in tackles with 192, and that was prior to the evening's game on week 18. Number 1 in carries with 178. I mean, what more do you want from a back row forward when you've got the defense and the offensive weapon? That's what you look for, is this guy that can do it all, that can both be a offensive juggernaut and just a defensive stalwart. He, ironically, we found out yesterday that New England actually awarded him, I think he was the player of the year for the team. So I actually selected him prior to that, just for the record. Best back, it's got to be Joe Mano. Number 1 in tries with 14. Number 1 in meters carried with 1,602. This is prior to the San Diego match. Number 10 in points with 70. And let's see, he scored in 10 of the 14 matches he appeared in. He scored tries. Right, so the guy is a consistent try scorer. He had 3 matches where he had multiple tries. One with he had 2 brace of try games, and he had 1 hat trick. But it just shows you his consistency throughout the season. He just didn't score them in bunches. He was consistently scoring them throughout the season. So I got to give it to Joe Mano again. They flipped their fortunes around. Just came up a little shy of the playoffs, 10-6, doubled their win total, and it's got to be a credit to him. Watch him in person. He's just electric. All right. So MVP candidate. This one was a tough one. A lot of guys came through my mind, but for me, the MVP is a guy that just makes it's not necessarily a try scorer, not necessarily a guy like Nate scores some tries, but this is a guy that makes the team tick, that makes the team run. And for me, it was Jason Potros from New England. Why? Well, think about who won this last year.
I'm starting to think we copied our notes from someone.
Right. So think about who won it last year. It was Bowden Walker. Well, Bowden Walker doesn't join the team until I think week 13, and they slide him in at 15, not at 10. He had some amazing shoes to fill. I mean, the MVP of the league last year, he has to fill those shoes. What do? He fills them brilliantly, right? Which is a tall order. And I think purposely they don't put Walker at 10 because, they were clicking. You don't change that kind of chemistry, right? In spite of, who you're bringing in. But 33 points in 15 matches, which was number 1. Number 5 in kicking meters with 3,555, 2 tries, 11 penalties, and 44 conversions. I mean, this guy was at the top of that sheet. So I think, I know Mikey's cringing and crying right now, but you got to give credit to credit was due. They've had a hell of a run, and let's see if they finish it out this season there in Chicago.
And on that note, diving off that platform that you gave me there, I give credit where credit's due. I want to say that I got a lot of help to be able to come to these conclusions with the help of James Dealey. If you're not already following him online, you could do so under the handle at MLR Stats. And of course, you can get them through Instagram and social media circles there. Rob, I don't know if maybe this is your secret. Has your secret always been that you've had James in your back corner? Because every single one, and even your quotes, I like it. But this is the thing, though, is we were in the same circles and we end up talking about the same players. And when you do that, and if it's, out of context, we're talking about rugby players, significant contributions, all these things that we helped identify these guys here, and the same names keep popping up, that's when you know that has to be somebody that is, a top pick. If Conradi comes up for meters gained and people talk about the work ethic and talk about that, and then you have several people in the same rugby circles, especially the higher and more high profile of that rugby circle is, and the same names keep coming up, those are the names that need to be recognized. And that's what this is all about. And for those people who are tuning in at home, like Mikey may have said, hey, I'm going to catch a rugby game as often as I can, but I might not know every guy out there. Well, now we just highlighted a few important ones for you to pay attention to, many of which are going to be in this postseason run, many of which might be in that MLR final. And the one great thing that I love about American sports is that they know how to make sure that you connect with the players and follow them. And through them, you'll learn about rugby, the sport as a whole, and the teams in particular, because that's what it's all about here, folks. We on the Rugby Rant are just one medium to be able to bring the game that we also love together through combined joy of the sport. So we aim to do everything here to be able to help you as a rugby fan. And gentlemen, you've done that for everybody here.
Now, Ty, I want to jump in for just a moment. Ty always says this at the end of each production, go down, comment, tell us what you think. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. We invite fans. I mean, Mikey has been a reoccurring character, and I do mean character, on our show, consistently, but we love to get new blood in here. So don't be afraid.
Right.
If you've got strong opinions, reach out to us. We want people who have different perspectives, especially representing teams. Like, we don't have fans that have represented us from Chicago. I mean, Liz Hallcraft was just on last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago from Seattle. It's the first time we've had somebody from Seattle. We need to get some Utah folks on here. It's been a while. Join us. But most importantly, tell us your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what everybody else is thinking. You agree, disagree? What are you thinking on some of these? Give us some feedback. I want to know, because it's just fun debate. We may disagree, but damn it, if we're talking about rugby, we agree on one thing, and that is we love this game.
Amen. And Mikey's been on the show so much, I can say that Mikey's going to send a shout out to Old Breed Rugby. But all jokes aside, though, Mikey, you have always been a great guest to us. You're obviously a tremendous lover of the game, and it shows in everything that you do. And again, it's been an honor to be able to have you with us. And again, it won't be your last time. And thank you for standing in on behalf of Scott, the big guy himself, who you'll get to be able to see week after week as we continue to do what we do here on the Rugby Rant week after week. And you can continue to enjoy this content by following us under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod on all our social media platforms, in addition to catching us in audio form in any of the major platforms you choose to consume your podcasts. And of course, finally, last but not least, the home of Major League Rugby, the Rugby Network, where we'll be continuing to share our episodes like this week after week with your help and the help of our partners. So in a final summation here, you have your top picks. There were 6 names shared. Will they be on that list come the end of the season? We don't know. We'll pay attention to it, and we encourage you to tell us whether you think we were on par, way off base, and who your suggestions might have been by following us under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. Gentlemen, another great episode in the bank. Well done. Thank you for your time and your support. And to the fans at home, we'll catch you at the next.